there is a saying: you leave a Marine in a room with a ball bearing and leave him there for a couple of months. You come back, it's either going to be lost, broken, or pregnant.
Hey guys, this is the Hard Time Strongmen podcast, and today we're joined by our guest Critter. Critter, how are you doing, man?
Doing good, man.
Cool. Well, we've talked for months now. Hell, like before or just after Christmas, we started talking, trying to get you on the show. But I mean, our mission set, or our goal. To tramp a bear class of man. We're trying to raise the standard of everybody, and that is a very large task, and it covers a bunch of different skill sets. And just seeing what you put out on IG is, I think, really it makes the whole thought, at least the whole concept, really doable. You give off your information in a really down to earth way, and I think that's a lot of what people are lacking and what people could use. So
yeah. Like, when I first started the page, I was just throwing stuff out there, and it didn't really do too well. And then, I kind of went away from doing engineer stuff, started doing kind of more homestead stuff, and then I can't remember what made me do. I think I saw, Risky Krisky or something post something, he mentioned something about engineers. I was like, I need to get back into this. I got back into it. I started going back over the stuff I posted. I was like, man, this is if you really read into it, you can get some information out of it, but it's not presented in a good way. So I started going back and redoing and starting from scratch, and even just doing something as simple as PowerPoint made it a lot easier to process and understand what was going on. So that's what most of my newer posts have been. I just go through PowerPoint, I throw a couple of pictures to get your attention, and then and try to keep it short, sweet, and to the point. And that's done a lot better. Gotten a lot more responses from off of that than what I was previously doing. Was like, hey, here's a screenshot of FM 5TAC34. Read this.
Right. And just a little bit out of order, but your IG tag is Critter1371. You are a former combat engineer. Do you want to go into your background a little bit and what you're doing now?
Yeah, sure. I joined the Marine Corps right out of high school because I really we didn't have a whole lot of money. I knew Mom and Dad couldn't pay for college. I wouldn't get no scholarship, so I had to do something to advance my life. So that's what I went with. Cool. I was a combat engineer for 8 years. I had one deployment in Afghanistan during that time, which ironically was with the MEU. I don't know if you would know what the MEU is with. It's the Marine Expeditionary Unit. That's where we go out and get on boats and go float around. Yeah, I was supposed to go on a Mediterranean booze cruise, is what we called it. We're supposed to go up and hit up Rome, Greece, Spain, Italy, and all that. Yeah, we go up, and they're like, yeah, by the way, we're not doing that no more. We're getting on a plane and flying to Afghanistan for 8 months.
That's just rude.
Yeah. So, but it was my only time going to Afghanistan, so, there's that. And then I got out, got married, went to Okinawa, Japan, was there for 3 years, and then went to Pendleton for a couple of years, and then I was like, I'm kind of done with this, and got out. I know a lot of people look at, oh man, 8 years, you should have just stayed in. And I was like, no, I could sense culture changing and a bunch of other stuff changing. I was like, this is just not for me. I'm done.
Yeah.
But so I went ahead and got out, and I did a bunch of general education stuff in school for a while, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Ended up getting into some industrial maintenance stuff, and I work in a factory now. I don't want to say what kind of factory it is, because if it was, and you pay any attention to my Instagram channel, you'll know exactly who I work for. But I do work in a factory doing maintenance on the machines that actually build stuff. That's the only job that I've had where I haven't had a day where I just wake up dreading going to work. So I'm really happy.
Awesome, man.
Yeah, I'm really happy with it. It always keeps me on my toes. There's always something new. Always something different breaks every day that I have to fix. This is never the same thing.
Well, I mean, glass half full, right? That's not too bad.
Yeah, so I'm pretty happy where I'm at as far as that goes. But that's pretty much the short and sweet of it.
Cool. I mean, I remember when I first really dug into your content was your Minuteman engineer posts. Mm-hmm. I remember reading those headers, and I was like, oh man, I need to get into this a little bit. And you're going through barriers, water crossings, all sorts of stuff. I was like, oh man, this is cool. I think that's when I messaged you. But Can you tell people who aren't really privy, because I've worked with engineers before, obviously in the Army, but what is a combat engineer? What does a combat engineer do?
Combat engineers are pretty much the jack of all trades for the military. We do all kinds of stuff. I'm not sure how the Army breaks it down, like because I know with the Army y'all got 11 Bravo. If you're infantry, you're just 11 Bravo. Where like Marine Corps is like, hey, we got 0311, that's the rifleman, right. Or 0331 is the machine gunner, blah 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 blah. So for Marine Corps, we have 1371s. That's where the 1371 comes from. My name. That's the MOS designation for a combat engineer. Combat engineers are responsible for all kinds of construction, like wood frame construction, concrete block construction. If you can name it, we pretty much build it.
Okay.
The obstacles, wire obstacles, cutting down trees, demolitions, classifying roads, making roads, all that kind of stuff. But then we also have our electricians they'll be like 1171s, I think, is an electrician. Or maybe that's a water dog, I can't remember. But yeah, we have like water purification specialists, electricians, generator mechs, heavy equipment operators, heavy equipment mechs. All those will all go into like an engineer company or engineer platoon. But I specifically go off into the combat engineer stuff. But we have like engineer recon, that's like inspecting bridges or looking at a bridge to blow up or how evaluating roads, mobility, clearing obstacles, counter mobility, putting in obstacles, mines and all that good stuff, survivability, it's like fighting positions, bunkers, or just amenities to we're like one of the things we had to do when we was in Afghanistan was build some burnout crappers for the grunts out at Fob Dwyer to poop in and burn in. Just stuff to make life a little bit better sometimes. And then, of course, the fun stuff that everybody wants to talk about is demolition, which is blowing stuff up.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. So pretty much our entire, I guess, environmental lives in Western culture then, what you guys have a hand in.
Yeah, and it's kind of, I meant to mention this a little bit, in a bunch of the European militaries, they'll call us pioneers instead of engineers, which is kind of funny because we have, one of the toolkits that engineers have is we call it a pioneer kit, and that's where like, you're going through clearing out brush and doing a bunch of stuff like that. I just thought that was neat.
I was going to say, we were mechanized and we had a little pioneer kit, and it was on the side of our vehicles. It was like a pickaxe, a shovel. Yeah, same kind of idea, just clearing out or building up whatever you need for the vehicle. That's a lot, man. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like we are a jack of all trades. Like if you talk to like the Navy, they have their Seabees, and but they are uber specialized. Like if they do concrete block, that's all they do, and they've got basically a college degree in it.
Wow.
Like don't ask them about building a wood frame construction building over here. They only do concrete block. Or don't ask them how to pour slab. They only do concrete block. Okay. Whereas like we don't know as much as they do in that one specific thing. We know enough we have to know enough to at least get the job done.
Yeah. So, okay.
Yeah.
So what kind of how long is your schooling going into that?
It is. I want to say it's about 2 months. It's been so long since I've been in MOS school, bro. Let me check real quick. I can do a quick find.
I was going to say, didn't mean to date you, man.
It's been a while. 3 months.
Wow. So that whole, like you said, jack of all trades, so just a working knowledge of all that in 3 months.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's basic stuff. And they start at ground level too, dude. Like, cause you got people of all walks of life coming in there, and you got some people in there that's like, hey, if you told them, hey, hand me that skill saw, they'd be like, which one? They don't know what a skill, which that's what a lot of people in trades will call a circular saw. But they start off day one to say, hey, this is a hammer, this is a screwdriver, this is a handsaw, this is a circular saw, and just go through all that stuff. So it was you starting there and then ending. Like, we're building stuff on the demolition range for the officers to blow up, and then we have to go build stuff for ourselves to blow up later.
Wow. That's crazy. That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
All right. So how were you most utilized when you were in?
when I was
it mainly
in
like the demolition stuff, or were you guys like making bridges? What did they rely on you most for?
Okay, so it's funny you mentioned bridges. I started off at 8th ESB in their bridge company, and that was the only active duty bridge company in the entire Marine Corps. The other bridge companies were reservists, and that the 8th ESB bridge company has since been stood down. So the only bridge companies we have now are reservist companies. We don't have any that are active duty.
That's encouraging.
Yeah. But when I was with the bridge company, we really didn't do any like medium girder bridges, but we did have the ribbon bridges, the floating bridges, and we had a bunch of boats for them. We had to like maintain the boats and stuff like that, and we did what's called raft operations, where we just took one section of the floating ribbon bridge, took it down to the bay, put it out, and you tied two boats to either side of the section of the bridge, and we loaded Abrams tanks on it, and then ferried them across the bay to the other
way.
thing. Yeah. Hey, here's a raft. Here's a floating bridge. Tie two boats to it and haul an Abrams. And we did that one day. That was pretty cool.
You guys cast away at a tank?
Yes.
Goodness.
Yeah, that was something I never thought I would do as a combat engineer. Like I knew I was going to be building bridges and like building buildings and stuff, but never in a million years thought we were going to be on a boat ferrying a tank across the bay.
But like, who made that SOP? I feel like that's a hold my beer moment. It's like, oh, we don't have enough bridge. Oh no, what will we do?
I don't know who came up with it, but like everybody at the bridge company was like, yeah, this is a normal day-to-day thing for us. I was like, okay, cool. And then from there, I was in the construction shop. Construction shop is like, it can be really chill and laid out for you, or it can be like hectic. It just depends. But like that's like, hey, you're building plaques and shadow boxes for people that are getting out. So you get a little bit of that fine woodworking stuff in,
Yeah.
Which it was good, good experiences and stuff. And we did pour several concrete slabs over there for different projects around the base. That was good for us to learn on, get practice mixing concrete and getting it to the right grade and everything like that. But then from there I went to the MU, and the MU was like a bunch of workups, and honestly, a lot like we'd either get a construction thing. So here, I need this made out of wood. Is what a lot of it would be. It's like, hey, can you build this or can you build this? And sometimes it'd be something big, sometimes it'd be something small. Like when I was with the MU in Afghanistan, they had on Kandahar Airfield this area where they were storing like all this ordnance for the Harriers, like up to 2,000-pound bombs were stored in this thing, and it was just like big berm in a square with an opening. And that was it. And they were like, yeah, can y'all, make this so we can lock this up and do this, that, and whatever. Yeah, okay, we'll come up with a plan. Well, while we're building it, they're storing bombs in there. We're like, what? I was like, y'all don't. And there's no guard post. I was like, what are we doing? But we went through and like we laid. I don't know if you know what HESCO is.
Yeah.
Yeah, we laid HESCO on top of the berm, and then on top of the HESCO, put concertina wire around that, and then made this massive gate. We had like 8x8 posts, and then 6x6, or not 6x6s, but 2x6s and 2x4s and stuff. Just made this huge wooden gate so they could actually lock it up. I was like, I can't believe y'all just been storing ordnance in here with no lock, no guard, just like Hodgies are just driving around on jingle trucks all over the place. We're like, what are we doing, guys? And it's like right next to the airfield too. But yeah, we did that. So that was reinforcing that. And like I said, we flew out to the Fob Dwyer to like build places for people to go poop in a sanitary way. Just different stuff like that. Whatever they use us for that. And then
that's awesome.
When I was in Okinawa, we were doing airfield stuff. It's like helping put in expedient airfields and stuff, like practicing for that. Which when I was in Okinawa, I got fapped out a lot. Like I was like with the range for 8 months, and then I come back from the range, they put me with S3 for a while, and blah blah blah. So I didn't get a whole lot of experience with the airfields. But then when I was at Pendleton, it was back to a construction shop where it's like me and just one other engineer pretty much, and it was like, okay, we're building shadow boxes again for people getting out.
Right.
Pretty much how we were used. Now, I did do a couple of demo ranges when I was in. I did more demo ranges with the MU than I did anything else. And I did when I was in Okinawa, we did build a school in Thailand, which that was fun. So So, we get utilized a good bit, but as far as like the obstacles and stuff, nobody really wants us to go out and practice putting up obstacles because then, like at a training environment, then you got to tear it down.
Right.
So, like nobody wants to deal with it. Like you've seen people put up concertina wire all the time, and I guarantee you've never seen it put up by the book. I guarantee it, because by the book you have to have barbed wire reinforcement that actually gives it structure and holds it together so that you can literally have an Abrams tank go through there and it'll pull the track off the Abrams.
Wow.
But like nobody wants to do it that way because it takes
take it down.
It takes more time and then it takes longer to tear down, and they just want to throw something up that looks like a fence and they can call it secure and move on.
Right.
So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. So let's say a notional scenario, right? What would like a basic loadout for just an individual combat engineer look like?
All right,
just kind of an all around, because I know you guys do all sorts of nonsense, but what would be your kind of go-to kit, I suppose?
Go-to for an first off is work gloves. We get good work gloves, not like the leather shooting gloves that you're issued. Those things are trash. Like you'll destroy them the minute you touch concertina wire with them. Just like your basic garden variety, like leather working gloves, will get you through 80% of what you need for a combat engineer.
Okay.
That is the most important thing. Obviously, you need eye protection too. Whenever like people don't think about it, oh well, I'm like hammering nails. Well, I don't know how much time you spent hammering nails, but you hit that thing the wrong way, and I've seen them go flying. And then also, when I was at the construction shop, had some reservists come in, and one of them didn't know what he was doing with a nail gun and had the nail ricochet off the wood and fly past my face. So I was like, I'm going back inside. But yeah, so working with power tools and stuff like that, you do have, you do need to actually wear your eye protection. I know it's kind of cliche to say, but it does need to be harped on because some people ignore it. As far as individual things, some good wire cutters are good. I know, I think it's, who was it, Sky Pirate? I can't remember. It's somebody on Instagram. I'm missing the name right now. He was talking about some Nipex miniature bolt cutters. Those would be really good.
Okay.
Sandbags, like definitely need to carry at least like 20 sandbags on that. That's what I recommend for if like you're an engineer like mixed in with somebody else. I think everybody needs to carry at least 10, but engineers should probably carry 20.
What can dudes do with sandbags?
Your fighting positions for one. If you have a building, you can reinforce a wall so that you do have more protection. It's not just plywood and insulation or whatever.
So another 80% solution, just kind of like a jack of all.
Yeah, you can
throw it wherever.
You can throw it wherever. Just weighting it down and using it to like hold down a tarp or something. Like there's like all kinds of stuff you can do with that.
Cool.
I think everybody should have an e-tool, but especially an engineer, you need to have an e-tool because you're going to be digging something. Preferably, if you're digging with engineer stuff, you have a full-size shovel to use, but an e-tool is better than your hands. I like the folding silky saws; those are really good for like sawing through like small branches and stuff. If you're trying to get a precise cut and you don't have actual lumber that you're making something out of, and you're trying to make do with what you can find in the field. There's folding silky saws; those are nice.
Okay.
A good hatchet you can double as a hammer if you have to. I like lineman pliers for like if you have wire ties for tying them up good, or just a good multi-tool also would replace both your bolt cutters and your lineman pliers. Actually, now that I think about it. A good multi-tool would be good. And some cordage, some kind of 550 cord, something like that.
Okay. Just for binding.
Yeah, just for binding stuff up. Because you always need something to tie together. Or zip ties. Zip ties would be great too.
Okay, yeah. That'd be quicker for sure.
Yeah. And, especially if you get like the good heavy duty ones, you can zip tie them. You can throw a couple of them on and they'll hold a lot more than what a lot of people think they will. I like brush hooks instead of machetes, just because for the area that I'm in, we have a lot of thick brush, and brush hook makes quick work of it because of the shape of it. I just feel like it hacks better, but to each their own. Machete will still work too. I think that's about it for what I would expect an individual to carry on an everyday thing. Anything else would need to be like squad level and then dispersed throughout a squad.
Yeah, so what would those kind of items be? Like just to kind of maximize your ability as a combat engineer and like to disseminate, like say you were given a task, you're one engineer with, like 8 other dudes, but you have to like, pass down instruction or like, like get everybody together to make something happen. What would be the kind of equipment you'd want to disseminate through a squad?
Okay, so a lot of this is going to be very mission specific. Because like if you're going to dig a fighting position and you're not worried about putting up any wire obstacles, you don't want to be toting around you don't want to be toting around the post driver and a bunch of E-stakes or whatever, right? So this is going to be a huge list, all right? But it's if you got this, you can do probably 90% of what an engineer should be expected to do. Okay. Not counting demolitions, all right?
All right, shoot.
But full-size brush hooks, some D-handle shovels, which are the shorter ones. You could go with the longer handle ones, but that's going to be harder to pack, especially if you're going through tight brush. I like the D-handle ones because you can actually strap them to the side of a pack. Your post driver, along with some kind of fence post, either T-post, U-post, however that is. Maybe some barbed wire. Be realistic on how much barbed wire you're going to carry. People don't realize how much this stuff weighs. Like, say 100 meters of barbed wire. I had it pulled up. Where'd it go? Just 100 meters is about 12 pounds. Whereas if you go, if you're just trying to buy barbed wire online, a lot of it is like this, like 1,300 feet or whatever. I don't know how many meters that is, but 1,300 feet, and that's like 60 pounds. So you're like, yeah, you can add that to somebody's ruck, but that's going to take up a lot of space. Whereas if you got like 100 meters, you can have everybody towed 100 meters, and only adding 12 pounds. That's a little bit easier to manage and deal with.
Yeah, it's a little more doable for sure.
Yeah. And also a little trick for if you're toting like a roll of barbed wire, wrap the crap out of it with duct tape. That way it's not tearing up the inside of your ruck, and you can just peel the duct tape off or cut it off whenever you get to where you're going.
Okay.
But you're never, wherever you use it at, you're never going to get it as tight as it came off of that bundle. So like I would cut it and trash it. If I have to pull it up, cut it, trash it somewhere else. I would not plan on hauling it back out.
Okay.
But anyway, going back to the squad. Bolt cutters, you can go full size on that, not just the mini ones. Some kind of axe, because maybe you don't have room to tow the chainsaw. If you got to cut down a tree, axe is going to be your best friend. Pickaxes, if you're doing any kind of digging, it makes busting up that dirt a lot easier. Crowbars, if you're having to tear anything apart or, do a little bit of breaching, mechanical breaching. Some grappling hooks, they're good for breaching a wire or for clearing minefields. Throw out a nice little crow's hook. I think Op4 Raider on Instagram, he has a couple of posts on that. They're really good. Some post hole diggers. There is a type of glove that we are issued. I wish I would have went out to the garage and grabbed it. But we call it gauntlets. There's a really thick, heavy glove with staples all on the palm for dealing with like concertina wire, because concertina wire itself will chew up like most gloves. And that's a really heavy-duty glove that's really only good for messing with concertina wire because of how bulky it is.
Okay.
But handsaws, chainsaws, like nothing beats a chainsaw as far as like for how fast you cut and how efficient it is. The main limiting thing for chainsaws is how are you going to carry it, and that's actually my next my next topic that I'm wanting to cover on the Instagram page. But I was hoping to actually already have one by the time we had this, but life throws unforeseen circumstances at us, and I had a total of my truck, so I'm holding off on that money until I get a truck, just in case I have to use it for a down payment. But I think I'll be good. I think after I get a truck, I still have enough left over to go get a chainsaw. But chainsaws are huge, like cutting down trees to make obstacles, making a Betis or anything like that. Like they are a huge force multiplier. I highly recommend them. Sledgehammers, something you might have to drive post with a sledgehammer, or just tearing stuff apart. Sledgehammers are very useful. Where did my other notes go that I had? Because I come up with a couple of extra ones since we were diving off a little bit more into this. Ratchet straps. You'd be surprised at how useful those are. Not even just in like tying loads down, but like you're trying to move something heavy, tie that ratchet strap around the tree, tie it to whatever you're trying to move, and you can ratchet it down, get it into place. Some ladders, if you're doing any kind of like building at height, the little giants are nice. They're heavy, but they are compact, and if you've got vehicles, you can stow it in, and they don't take up a whole lot of space. Some heavier duty rope, not just 550 cord, for like once again, like, hey, maybe I got to climb up this tree, and you can haul the chainsaw after you, and then start topping off the tree or something like that.
Right.
Tree felling wedges. So if you're trying to cut the tree down in a very specific direction, you got the wedges, and you can use the sledgehammer to hammer them in, and help cut that down, knock it down in a certain way. And with all these edge tools, you're gonna want a bunch of different files for maintaining them. Like I was just digging some posts for a fence for the dogs in the backyard the other day. Not the other day; it's been a couple of months ago now. But like out here, we have like really hard compacted red clay, and the post hole diggers actually like bent in and curled in because they were dull, and I had to hammer them out straight. And I mean, they were old post hole diggers, it's not like brand new, but I still had to hammer them out straight and then hit them up with a file to sharpen them up. And I still, after that, went and was pouring water in the holes to keep from damaging the post hole diggers again. But yeah, keeping everything nice and sharp helps. Some power tools, like hand drill, sawzall, circular saw, chop saw, stuff like that. That helps make work go by a lot faster than just doing it all hand tools. But once again, this is all getting into how much can you carry,
Right.
A nail gun, small air compressor, screws and nails, hammers, tie wire. I already mentioned barbed wire. You can buy concertina wire online. Some people didn't know that, but you can. But I would only buy concertina wire if you're going to be able to have a vehicle to haul it.
Right.
Because there is no good way to put that on a pack. There's none whatsoever. If you're doing some kind of wood construction, you're going to need some lumber. A concrete mixer and a wheelbarrow would be great if you're doing any kind of concrete work. Because instead of having to try to just mix it by hand, concrete mixers will save your back. And a mason trowel, mason float for doing any kind of concrete work. Some sandpaper. And I threw in metal detector at the last minute. You cannot find a mine detector, available to a civilian. But you can find a metal detector, and it's not going to detect the low metallic plastic mines. But if you're in a situation where you have to try to find something that's better than just walking and praying.
Right.
But I think that about covers it as far as squad stuff goes.
Cool.
Is there any questions you had maybe about that or anything?
Not specifically that I can think of. Like I said, like we said in the beginning, it's difficult because your scope is so wide, right? So it's like you have to give you like a very specific situation to to nail down a question. But just from your experience, as a combat engineer, how were you, I guess, underutilized? You know what I mean? Because you are a jack of all trades, you can do so much, and leadership never hits the mark, it seems like. So how were you underutilized? How could you have been used better?
Involved us in planning, really. Like, where it was, hey, we're going to go out and do this, instead of having an engineer there to sit in and make suggestions to, hey, we could do this or we could do this. It's just like, oh, well, we need the engineers to do this, and then they just leave it alone. They don't ask, hey, what else could you do, or anything like that. And having people involved in planning, having somebody that has some kind of idea of what an engineer is capable of doing involved in the planning. Whereas a lot of times it's like, oh, no, we don't want to do that, or we don't have time to do it that way, or something like that, is what it boils down to a lot.
Okay. So it'd be better to figure out what's going on before you get the op order than to learn about it then.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. One of the questions I was going to ask you before we started talking was going back to like the Minuteman engineer kind of idea of, like what kind of civilian job like best lends itself to one-to-one transferring over and taking up the role of a combat engineer. But after talking with you, okay, like carpenter, electrician, plumber, I've any number of these jobs. So
any of the trades, like lumberjack, somebody that does a lot of tree felling. Like there's an art to that, and like I've been like I said, I've been looking at the chainsaw stuff. I've watched a couple of chainsaw videos. Now Instagram's flooded my thing of like all these lumberjacks, and they're cutting down stuff, and like I'm talking about, they're cutting down this massive tree that's like this big in between a gap that big, and I'm like, I do not trust myself to do that.
I was going to say some of these videos I've seen one dude drop a tree like in between open gate, and he's like, it's going to go right there. Wham! It's like, goodness.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm not that good. Like I did when I was going through school. I had a teacher that was he was paralyzed from the waist down, and he needed some help during one of our breaks cutting down some trees in his yard. So yeah, I'll come out and help you. I cut down the first one, went down good. Second one, it had a S curve in it, and like so it had all the weight on this side over here of the tree, and I wanted it to fall this way. And he had the idea of, we'll throw a rope up here, tie it off, and have this other guy that's out here helping us. We'll tie the other end of the rope to the truck and have him over that way, pulling it that way. I'm like, that's what you want to do? All right, we'll do it. And I start cutting it. I cut my wedge on the way I wanted to go, and I start cutting the relief cut, and the wind started blowing. And that thing started going backwards, and it bound up the saw, and I about crapped my pants. I let go of the saw, and we started screaming at him to go. He finally started going, pulled it tight, and it started going. And I should have just left the saw alone, but my idiot self reached in there, grabbed the saw, and pulled it out, and then got out of the way. But yeah, that was a crap moment, and it narrowly missed one of his wife's palm trees or whatever. He's like, I've still hit that sheet of man. I'm like, well, I was like, it was a kind of screwed up situation, Mister. I don't know what you want me to do.
Well, like I've seen so many videos of where it'll just kick back at a dude, and it's like, golly.
Oh, dude, I watched one the other day. There's like some grandma was out there sawing down a tree, and she almost died. I don't think she realized it, but she almost died because the tree fell and then it kicked up, and like you saw the tree. The stump was right here at her head, and it literally just bounced over her head. Like, if it had just went sideways, like, Grandma would have been dead.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People don't realize how dangerous it is. Like, when I went to E-School and we were practicing with the chainsaws, they were saying, hey, we're not going to be able to cut down a tree this time with you guys because the last cycle they had an instructor out there die because the tree got hung up on something, and whenever it finally broke free, it shot down and hit him in the back of the head, and it killed him even though he was wearing his hard hat. So
wow,
it's very dangerous. It's not something just to go out there and play with. Like, well, if you got a tree that's out there in the middle of nowhere, yeah, sure, go practice on it, but I wouldn't go start off on like a 18-inch diameter oak that you're trying to cut down.
Well, it's like, and people, you don't realize how much trees weigh, just how much wood weighs until you've worked with it a lot. Like, we had to take down the only tree, unfortunately, in my backyard because it had heart rot all the way through. I took down a limb and I just saw like a 6-inch just black hole, and it's like, golly. So I had to take it down before it took out the deck, but or the kid or the dogs or whatever, right? So yeah. I was taking it down. I had a buddy who's same as you, a tradesman, and just knows everything, seems like. So he's helped me out, and he tied off this limb, and I was we had it anchored over top, and I was holding on to it. Me and my dad were holding on to it, and then he felt it. As soon as the weight hit, it took me off the ground, probably 5-6 foot out of the air, and like 10 feet over towards the tree before it finally settled down and we were able to lower it. It's like, dude, I'm 200 pounds. And it took me just like, seriously, 5 foot off the ground, 10 feet, like just, I flew. And it's like it was nothing. Yeah. It's like, it's an outrageous amount of weight that's just there.
Yeah, that's why you see a lot of these professional guys that are out there like cutting down trees like in neighborhoods and stuff. They don't just cut down the whole tree. They climb up, cut limbs off as they're going, and they top it and take it down in sections so it's not the whole thing coming down.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to be the guy climbing, but that is the safer way to do it, if we're being honest.
Well, we felled a same sort of situation. Felled a tree in my buddy's yard. This huge oak tree. Felled it. We were cleaning up, coring everything. Went over, and there was probably a 6-8 inch, limb that had been driven just down just into the dirt. And I kicked it, and it was just solid. I was like, oh, like it didn't break. It just got punched down into the dirt. And I was like, wow, yeah, that's never coming out. All right.
This is now part of the yard.
Yeah, just craziness. But I mean, and that's the thing. So that was my, my original question was how to, like what transfers like 1-to-1, what guys, what guys can be trained up. But there's just so much. So I guess the question is, thinking of being in that leadership role or taking on, people who are in this community. How do you best, pick and utilize people for that? How do you train up people into that kind of mindset of your job?
You want somebody that is, or one like a steady hand is good. Obviously, you got a lot of hand work. Sorry, I had a brain fart there. But a good mindset really is the big one. Like if you have somebody that can work under pressure, can deal with a time crunch. Like, hey, we've got to have this hole dug by we're digging a fighting position, and we're expecting somebody to be coming here within so many hours. It's like you got a legit, deadline, and it's not just a deadline because you're not getting paid if you don't meet it. It's like, hey, so have somebody that can work under pressure, do what needs to be done, and do it right, and not half. I'm trying not to cuss. Half send it in, or half butt it, whatever, and do a shoddy job. Because your life, if you're digging in a fighting position, somebody's life is going to rely on that.
Well, right,
that's potentially a life-saving thing that you're working on, That's not just, hole in ground, It's, hey, you need to have it so they can have clear sectors of fire, this, that, and the other. And you might need to have somebody digging the fighting position, somebody out there cutting down trees so they do have a clear lane to fire. And you got to have somebody that can think of these things, not just go, we need fighting position, let's just dig here. And you got to be able to think a little bit bigger. So having somebody that works good under pressure, can see the big picture, and is not afraid of the hard work, because all of this is hard work. If you get done doing the day of work as a combat engineer, when your head hits the rock, rack, pillow, whatever you're using, you are out. If you have problems going to sleep after doing work as a day of engineer, then I don't think you did your job hard enough.
Well, that's the thing. It's like you're fighting the earth for a lot of what your job is. Mm-hmm. You're reshaping everything to what you need it to be.
Yes, and I mean there are certain things that make it more easier. Like if somebody can run heavy equipment, if somebody can run a dozer or run a backhoe, hey, that makes my job way easier, and we can have stuff done a lot faster. Or even just like a small bobcat or something. That makes everything a lot easier, and especially if they have access to that equipment, that you cut down your need for manpower a lot. So if you got a small team, but hey, somebody can run some heavy machinery and has access to it, that's a huge multiplier. Demolition, I probably still want to touch on this on the Instagram page a little bit. I don't touch on it a lot because not everybody has access to it.
Right.
But it itself can still be a huge multiplier. Like, say if you're trying to make an abatis, I don't know if you know what that is.
No, what is that?
That's it might be called, you might pronounce it abatis, I don't know, but it's where you have a bunch of trees, like say alongside a road, and you can either cut them down or you can put demolitions on them and blow out the bottoms of the trunk so they'll fall. So like say,
like falling towards
falling towards it, and they'll be interlocked like that. Sorry for podcasters, but yes, but they'll be interlocked over top of each other. So if you can do that, and say there's a convoy coming, and you can set that off with demo as they're coming, hey, that falls down in front of them, and they really have no time to react then. So demolition does help with that.
Yeah, they're not doing anything.
Yeah. And there's actually something called relative effectiveness factor, if I remember that correctly. And it's a way we do demolition calculations, and and it's all based off of TNT being like a 1.0 or whatever REF. And there is a REF for tannerite, which is ammonal, I think is what its actually explosive name is. It's ammonium nitrate and aluminum. And I actually want to look into how effective using tannerite to fill a tree is. My buddy's got a bunch of overgrown land. That one, we're going to practice cutting our trees down out there, and I also want to see how accurate my calculations are using tannerite and how much tannerite it will take to take down a good sized tree. So that might be something coming down the pipe later on.
Nice.
Yeah.
Doesn't tannerite, don't you need, so the trigger mechanism, isn't it pressure?
Tannerite needs a centerfire rifle cartridge to hit it. There are some exploding targets that only require a rimfire, like a 22, but I haven't used those. I don't know how reliable they are. I know tannerite is very safe. You can mix it up, hit it with a hammer, and it's not going to go off. It needs to be hit with a centerfire rifle. 5.56 will do it. I think
it's just like the feet per second kind of thing, or
yeah. Most of your energy from a bullet is coming from how fast it's going.
Right.
So yeah, your feet per second is what's doing. Is the velocity is not there. That's what you need the centerfire for.
Cool. Did you ever use thermite?
I've never used it in the Marine Corps. I've played around with it a little bit outside of it, trying to mix up stuff on my own.
How'd that go for you? If you don't mind.
It burns. It burns hot. Make sure you don't have it anywhere where it can get out of control.
Yeah.
But it does burn. It does really well.
I haven't done thermite yet. The most I've done is like making backyard napalm. And
yes, I listened to that episode.
I don't want to do it again, honestly. I'm going to do it again just to nail down the mix so I know what it needs to be, but it's scary, dude.
Yeah, there's a bunch of surprise. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about that. I can't remember what all did you use when you made your backyard napalm?
So we just used styrofoam and gasoline. But
styrofoam
talking to a buddy, he said
that's
styrofoam, gasoline, and motor oil would help a lot.
Yeah, motor oil helps. Mixing it 50-50 gasoline and diesel. Diesel will help it burn longer.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And also what you can use for a thickener is ivory soap.
Ivory soap?
Just ivory soap. Take you like a potato peeler and just make a bunch of shavings with it and add it in there, and that works as a very, very good fuel thickener and making it sticky. Styrofoam, it works really well. I've had good experiences with it, but it doesn't let it spread as much. You know what I mean? It's like it hits and it's kind of stuck there and it stays right where it's at. Whereas if you use the ivory soap, it'll still stick, but it spreads a lot more. So you have more
that's
more
interesting.
Pronounced, or more make fire go farther.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought of that. That's interesting. Yeah, and that was the scary part about the napalm we used was that it, like you said, it just clumped together and it stayed there. So we even tried to pull it off, and it would make these tendrils. And it would just like goo. Yeah, but it's hell, goo from hell because it was on fire and it just these black tendrils in. We could douse it with water and it would go out, but then if you moved it at all, it would catch right again because it would just get that carbon off and it would just start again. And it burned for forever. It burned for an outrageous amount of time. I was like, I would hate to have this anywhere near me in a bad way.
And white phosphorus is 10 times worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't put white phosphorus will burn underwater.
Goodness.
The only way you can I don't even know if there is a good way to put out a white phosphorus fire other than letting it just burn out. I had a better idea. I didn't know we was going to go this route. Otherwise, I looked this up. But yeah, I think it produces its own oxygen, which is why it burns underwater. So
holy crap, dude.
White phosphorus is very, very bad juju. If you have white phosphorus, you have to have it stored in a vacuum because as soon as it hits oxygen, it'll start burning.
That's terrifying. I love it. That's horrible.
Yeah. and we use that we used to use that as smoke rounds. That's why, like, you know the movie Fury? They fired the smoke round into the building. Yeah, that was white phosphorus getting on the Germans and burning them.
Oh, nice.
That's what we used to make the smoke, as white phosphorus.
Goodness, man.
Yeah, terrible stuff. Terrible stuff.
That's crazy.
And the smoke it produces, if I remember correctly, I might be wrong. Somebody's probably going to call me out on it, but if I remember correctly, the smoke it produces is also toxic.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
I swear, man, whoever comes up with this stuff is just like, they look around like, am I allowed to do this? And I'm like, yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Like, why not? Yeah, I cracked open, I don't remember what FM it is by heart, but the improvised munitions handbook.
Oh, to 21210, I believe it is.
I really appreciate you knowing that just off the top of your head.
I'm about to double check it, but I've got it saved as one of the Minecraft documents under my phone.
Nice. But yeah, I was just looking through. I'm just like, wow, this is a lot of really cool information. Really be a shame if someone made a cookbook out of this.
Yeah. Where are you at? Oh, TM31210. My bad. That's the one. But yeah, see, and there's a bunch of stuff in there, and it has a bunch of really, if anybody wants to look it up, it's good knowledge to have. But I am not a chemist. I was a combat engineer. They told me how to use it. They didn't tell me how to make it. And you start making primary explosives. That's a good way to lose a finger.
Or more, yeah.
Because you have secondary explosives. That's like your C4, RDX, stuff, TNT. That needs a blasting cap to set it off. Primary explosives are the ones that are super sensitive, and that's the stuff that goes into a blasting cap. And it doesn't take a whole lot to set them off. Like, there was some guy, I can't remember his name, Ordnance Lab talked about it a while back, but he was making TATP, which is very, very, very sensitive primary explosive that a lot of jihadis use in IEDs and for initiators and stuff. And he was trying to make it, he's going to try to do some evil stuff or whatever, and in the process of making it, it blew up and effed up his hand, and he went into the ER and tried to say it was a lawnmower accident, and they're like, no, this doesn't look like a lawnmower blade. And so he got arrested for that.
You can't go into ERs and just tell people what an injury looks like. They've seen it too much.
Yeah.
I remember I was working at an urgent care. I'm a nurse. I was working at an urgent care, and dude came in. His entire hand was like wrapped in a towel. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, I want this guy. This guy's mine. And I brought him back, and I'm like, hey, dude, what's your name? What happened? What do you do? And he took it off, and he's like, I was in my shop, and I was cleaning my fan. I was like, did you turn it off first? He said, no. He took the towel off, and it does, like, right at the junction of his hand to his second finger, down to the bone. I was like, oh, dude, you need to go to the ER, man. Like, we can't help you here. Sorry. But I'm just like, golly, man, you didn't turn it off. But yeah,
you sound like you would appreciate the Savage Paramedics.
I love their page. Yeah, I love it. They have the best stuff.
Yeah.
They do. Like,
stuff. I've got a buddy that he used to work with me. He's very squeamish. I love just sending him the stuff from Savage Paramedics. He gets so squeamish and like, no, it's going to make me throw up, stuff like that.
I send stuff to my buddy too, and he's like, oh, it's disgusting. Why do you do that? Thanks. It's like, yeah, you can't, like, it's like a train wreck. Like, it's hard to watch, but you can't look away.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Do you remember the one where it was like the guy was trying to jump from like a boat to the dock, and he fell on the fence? It was like a wire fence.
Oh yeah.
And you see it like go up through into his armpit. I was like, oh. Yeah.
That's bad juju.
Half the stuff I'm like, dude, that's gonna hurt for so long. Like,
I think the first one I ever saw was one my brother sent to me. It was like where a snapping turtle had bit somebody's finger off, and like I looked at it, looked like somebody took shears. It was such a clean cut, and I was like, oh my, like a turtle
so
did that?
Quick, dude.
Yeah,
they're so quick. It's scary.
Yes, they are. And I've got a bunch of them out. I got a pond in the backyard.
Oh, that's nice.
But I won't have any. I haven't seen any snapping turtles, but we got a bunch of turtles out there.
Jeez, man.
Yeah.
We had when I was a kid, we would go out and we would get crawdads from the creek. And you have some of those that would be like that big, and they'd like turn back on you. Like, yeah, you cut that out.
Yeah. Yeah, we got a. That's the thing I love about living down here is we have water everywhere. There's ponds, creeks, and that's one of the biggest things I was trying to figure out as far as like land nav wise. Like I got a topographical map for my area. I was looking, I was like, there's waterways everywhere. Like, SHTF situation, and I can't drive. I've got to have a good way to forward water.
Yeah.
I've got to have a good way to get across this if I have to walk, especially if I have to walk to my parents, because that's like a day's walk just to get to my parents' house.
Wow.
And if I want to go check on mom and dad, I could get there in under a day, but I'd have to go over there, then spend the night, and then walk back the next day or something.
Right.
So, luckily my in-laws are a lot closer. I could walk I could drive to their house in 5 minutes, so I could walk there in probably an hour.
Okay.
But yeah, there's a lot of rivers between there and yonder for a lot of them. And if I'm trying to stay off the roads or stay off the bridges, then I got to have a good way of forwarding water.
Right.
And I think most of it, especially if it's summer, I'm just going to have to get wet. But winter, it's going to be a little bit tougher call.
Yeah, that's danger.
Yeah. Which luckily for us, even during right now, even during January, I still have a bunch of green outside. And it was cool today, but I think temperature was in the 40s, and it'll maybe get down into the 30s tonight. Which I know I was talking trash the other day. Oh yeah, we have 80-degree Christmases, and then we had the coldest Christmas we've had in 5 years this year. And I was like, oh my god, I shouldn't have talked so much crap.
Jeez, dude. Well, and I talk smack about Texas all the time being too hot. Like I could die here every day, and then 2021 February, the freeze. It's like 3 degrees outside. I had no power. It's run a fire in my fireplace for 4 days. I was like, I take it back. This is horrible. Yes.
That's like a bunch of people around here are like, oh, I like the summer. I'm like, I like the winter, but I like Alabama winters. I like where it gets cold. It gets cold enough to kill the bugs, but I don't want to have to deal with 3 feet of snow.
I tell my wife all the time, I do light jacket weather. I have to throw on my little quilt line jacket. I'm just like, this is nice. I can do this. 40 degrees. That's 50 degrees. I'm okay with that. I can deal with that. Yeah,
I'm good. I'll even deal with it getting down into the 30s. I just don't want it to snow.
Yeah. All right, black ice scares me, man. Not as much snow. Just you're driving and then you're not anymore. I hate that.
Dude, I was going to Corporal's course when I was in Lejeune, and it had froze the night before, and we was up in North Carolina. I'm from South Alabama. I'm not used to driving in this stuff, and I hit a patch of black ice, and we did a 180 going down the road, going to Corporal's course. Me and all my buddies going to check in for Corporal's course, and our dress, not dress, but our service alpha is going to check in. And I was like, oh, this is we're going to we're gonna mess everything up just trying to get there driving, but it was good times. We made it.
Jeez.
This week's episode is brought to you by FieldSeats.com. FieldSeats.com is an e-commerce, federally licensed firearms dealer. They provide virtual reviews on brand new firearms, optics, and gear, where at the end of the review, they give away the item being reviewed to an attendee.
Currently, they've got reviews ranging from the Shadow Systems MR920 for $35, the Springfield M1A for $65, or Trichicon ACOG with RMR for $60. Each review has limited seating, so your chances of winning the giveaway are that much higher.
Check out FieldSeats.com to purchase your reviews and enter to win the item being reviewed, and use code STRONGMEN to get 10% off your order.
Be sure to check out their Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at field_seats for updates on products and other tips and info.
Use code STRONGMEN to receive 10% off your entire purchase at FieldSeats.com. Terms and conditions apply.
Thanks for listening, guys. Now back to the episode. Stay in the fight. So I'm just trying to think. I'm trying to think of a scenario for you. Okay. So let's say nothing specific, but say that you were tasked with making like a funneling kind of operation, right? Mm-hmm. So you had to funnel the enemy. You know where they're coming from. You had let's say I'll give you free reign over what kind of supply you have, but how would you what would be your preferred way of working out those obstacles?
Are we blocking a road or we're trying to channel them in through a field?
Let's say through a field.
So if we're going through a field, mines are great, but if you don't have mines, what is a still very effective tool is just put up signs that say you have mines. Like
oh, you know what? I haven't thought of that. That's actually really messed up, man.
Yes, like
well, it makes me think of the if you ever, I don't know if you ever read Fry the Brain, the Urban Sniper, but
I'm working on it right now. I haven't made it all the way through yet.
Yeah, just the sniper at work.
Yeah,
like same kind of idea. I like that.
Yeah, so if you look on my Instagram post and go to the counter mobility thing, it has the picture of the mine signs, which is just a inverted isosceles triangle painted red with the word mines on it. Which, I mean, you can just spray paint a sign that says mines, and it's going to make people think twice. But put that over where you don't want them to go. And if you do have a couple of small toe poppers or something, you can sprinkle them in if you wanted to, or rig up something, or just dig holes and then dig fresh holes, and then just backfill the hole, and then just backfill the hole so it looks like somebody just buried something there. And that'll channelize people away from that, or make them try to breach it. Either way, if they try to breach it with like a micklick or something, you're going to know they're coming. You're going to hear that.
Well, it's like that, wasting time.
Yeah,
makes me think of, you said earlier, a good squad. Excuse me. Squad equipment would be like postal diggers, just guy walking around. Make 20, 30 of those in 5 minutes.
Yeah, and you don't even have to dig very deep. You just have to make it look like somebody turned up stuff. So yeah that's
cool. Yeah,
that. Wire obstacles is a go-to, but like I said, if you don't have, if you're trying to do a lot of it, if you don't have heavy equipment and a lot of guys, then you got to be more careful about how you do it. What I do like is the tanglefoot obstacle. I can't remember if I've made a post on that yet, but basically what that is you have a just normal barbed wire, and you can either use pre-existing trees or drive stakes. A really good application of it is going if you got a field with tall grass, and drive 3-foot stakes into the ground. You want to have them 2 feet down, have 1 foot, about 1 foot sticking up, and then run that barbed wire just not straight across. Have some of it going up high, some of it going down low, and just so you can't just guess where it's at and jump over it, and just in a tangled mess wherever you don't want them to go, and put that in there, especially in that tall grass. They're going running through there thinking they're good. Boom, first person hits it, they're tripping over, falling. If they happen to land on a stake, now they're impaled on the stake too, not just falling over into the barbed wire and getting tangled up. There's all kinds of ways to mess somebody up like that, and that's also a good way of hiding it. Yeah.
Well, then just think of your mine idea, mixing that in with that as well would cause a lot more damage for sure. That's crazy.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good way to for denying the area.
Area denial. Yeah.
Yeah, area denial. That's a good way of doing it. Let me. Actually have FM534 pulled up somewhere.
Have you ever? Sorry, while you're looking it up, just think. Have you ever used vehicles, not your own vehicles, but say abandoned vehicles or?
Oh yeah, using a vehicle to block a road, definitely.
How do you go about that? Just overturning it, or what's the best way?
It depends. Do you want it? How permanent of a fixture do you want it? You can put it there, just leave it there, or pop tires. If you have HE available, maybe you can flip it on its side. If you have HE available, then what I'd really do, and you're trying to use a vehicle, dig a shallow hole, put it in there, and then backfill a little bit. If you have the time, that's going to be a really hard thing to move. If there's a farm close to you and they have a bunch of old tractor tires that they're not using, dig a hole, bury them halfway in, then backfill on that. That'll stop a truck. I promise you that.
Okay, those things are gnarly. I did that for my son in our backyard. I got an old tractor tire I bit, dug it halfway, and like you said, that thing's not going anywhere.
Yeah, it's not. If you really want to sturdy it up, throw some plywood over the gaps and the holes in it, and then fill it up with concrete. Yeah, no, that's really, really not going nowhere.
Yeah. I don't know if it was you who made the post or someone else on IG, but talking about same kind of idea with tractor tires, or just like, off the, just like vehicle tires, but just sequentially, like making a fence around an area.
There was, I made a post about it a while back, but it's like one of my older ones that looks like crap that I need to redo. I haven't redone that one yet. But I think Highway Snowpile, or there's another guy. He does engineer content as well. I follow him. What is his name? Hold on. I want to give credit where credit's due. Yeah, Highway Snowpile, Highway_Snowpile. He's done a couple of stuff like that. He may have done one mentioning that. I think somebody commented on one of my posts a while back about it too, and I was like, "Hey, yeah, I've actually made that myself, or I made a post on that." But I think he made a. I'm trying to look. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. But yeah, Highway Snowpile is also a very good account to follow for engineer stuff. So, if you don't have access to concertina wire, there is the double apron fence that you can make with just barbed wire. Let's see if I can. It's very involved and very wire intensive, but it is a replacement for concertina wire if you have to have something to that standard and that grade. There we go. I just sent it to you on Instagram, but that's a double apron fence. It's a diagram of that. Very involved. Like I said, it's going to use up a bunch of wire because you have 1, 2, 3.
Oh wow!
4.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
That is a replacement for concertina wire if you absolutely have to have something like that. But like I said, that is very involved as far as how much wire you're going to need. Like,
I was going to say, if you had an outrageous amount of barbed wire, for sure.
Yeah, like if you've got, say, a squad of guys each carrying 100 meters, you're probably going to use every bit of it doing that.
Wow. But that's a hell of a barrier. Good luck with that. Yeah,
that's not something you're just going to have somebody lay across and then crawl over the top of them getting across. And if you have a tank coming through there, I'm not going to guarantee it, but I say there's a good chance of it ripping the tracks off.
Wow.
On my posts of who can be a Minuteman, I was trying to go as broad as I could, and there is, or not a Minuteman, but like a Minuteman engineer type thing. Like,
right.
It pulls from so many different skill sets and so many different walks of life that can be applied to it. Like farmers. Like, a lot of people don't think about farmers have to put up their own fences all the time, and they also operate tractors, heavy equipment, doing all kinds of stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So if you're living in a rural community and you got a bunch of farmers together, guess what? They can do probably 70-80% of the job of a combat engineer by themselves.
I was gonna say,
you just got to you just got to tell them what you need done, and they'll probably be able to do it.
I was gonna say, if you have a general contractor buddy,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's the same difference. I mean, I think the major hurdle besides going from like a civilian trade to combat engineer is the explosives bit.
Mm-hmm. And that is something I wish I wish one was just more available to free people. Like, I know, some people can be a little scary about it or whatever, but I'm of the mindset that, hey, if the government can have it, everybody should be able to have it type person. But that's just me.
Well, I feel like a lot of this stuff is self-limiting.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, if everybody could, just buy HE at Walmart, then you're not going to see people popping off with it because everybody can have it.
Yeah, or they're going to blow their own selves up,
Right.
Because, I mean, back in the day, you used to be able to buy dynamite at the hardware store, Farmers used to do that. They'd go out and just buy dynamite for blowing up stumps when they were clearing land.
Yep.
Which, fun fact, military-grade dynamite is actually weaker than commercial dynamite.
Oh, naturally. Yeah, I don't doubt that at all.
because commercial dynamite or military grade dynamite is more stable. Because commercial dynamite actually has nitroglycerin in it, which is what makes it so strong, but also what makes it like you see in the cowboy movies. They shoot a stick of dynamite and it blows up. That's real. Like shock just from that will blow it up. If you have military grade dynamite, you can shoot it and it's not going to blow up. Yeah. They use I can't remember the actual type of explosive they use in it, but they use a different kind of explosive instead of nitroglycerin in military grade dynamite. But talking about explosives, I wish I could get a hold of the licensing for it, because I would love to do a kind of thing where I could have some people out and teach them engineering stuff and say, hey, at the end of it, we're going to blow some stuff up, because I feel like that would draw more people in.
Oh, yeah,
you're just like, hey, yeah, we're going to go out and do this. They're like, man, that just sounds like work. I don't think I don't think a whole lot of sounds like you just want me to clear some land for you or something,
Well, it's like a big difference than, all right, guys, we're going to throw up an OP, a guard shack. It's a lot different than saying, hey, guys, we're going to build a guard shack and then we're going to blow it up.
Yeah, then there's like, I get to blow stuff up. Sign me up.
They'd be like, of course.
Yeah, of course I want to help you do that. Why wouldn't I?
Yeah. That would be cool. I need to dig into that FM a little, because I'm not a chemist either, but I feel like some of this stuff is easier than not.
I'd be lying if I said I didn't look into it a little bit, and like you can find a bunch of stuff online. Like I'm not going to tell anybody where to go, but like if I've already got my name on the list just because I went to Combat Engineer School. They told us that at the day we graduated. It's like, yeah, congratulations, you're now on a blacklist. Once you get out, anytime anything blows up anywhere near you, you're automatically a suspect. I was like, okay, that's cool to know. Thanks, guys. But
wonderful. Thanks for the disclaimer. Appreciate
it. Yeah. So I mean, you go look for stuff. You're probably going to be put on a list. But I mean, if you're not already on a list, what are you even doing with your life?
Yeah. Right. Boring. Nerd.
But yeah, there are some things you can try to look up and try to figure out on your own. Just if you're going to, this is not legal advice. I'm not saying go out and do this. I'm just saying, if you're going to, start off very, very small and be very, very careful. That's all I'm going to say. Nice.
Yeah. All sorts of goodies over here. I need to... I wasn't lying with that post about my 2023 reading list. It's getting longer. I just need to start reading books.
Yeah. I mean, there's so... like... I started reading Fire the Brain, and then we went into Christmas shutdown at work and had a bunch of other stuff going on, and I was like, I got sidetracked with it. I need to pick it back up and finish it. But.
Yeah, it's just so I've got full-time work, and then the podcast, which is more than a half-time job, and then we just got chickens, and we're working on rabbits in the garden, and then I'm like, man, I still need to read Fire the Brain. I still need to read Where There's No Doctor. War of the Flea. I have so many books on my list. I've got to read
all this stuff, still have time with the family, do all this. Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah.
Like we've got 5 chickens, or 5 hens, 1 rooster. I just planted my peppers. I'm doing a bunch of peppers this year for our garden. So I got them started, and we've got other stuff that we're going to plant in the garden, but we can't plant it yet because we have to wait till after that first freeze is over.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot going on.
Oh yeah, well then I'm working on community stuff, and I'm just like trying to get all my neighbors into just basic radio stuff, because like when the freeze happened, I was going over to my elderly neighbors. While there was like 2 or 3 sheets of ice on the ground.
Yeah.
Had one neighbor busted after he just got shoulder surgery. Had one set of neighbors who never got out of bed because it was too cold. So I had to check on them every day, like all sorts of stuff. I'm like, man, it'd be really nice if I could just call y'all. But of course, all the cell towers were down. I was like, that's nice.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
I've got 2 elderly neighbors that I talk to, I wouldn't say on a regular basis, but like if we see them, like, we'll stop and talk a little bit.
Yeah.
One set of neighbors I go to church with, and like the rest of my neighbors, like everybody wants to keep themselves. It also doesn't help any that I'm the type of person that I don't really put myself out there a whole lot. Something I'm trying to work on. Like I need to try to talk to these people more, because if something happens, this is who I'm going to have around me to rely on and see if they can help, stuff like that. That's stuff I'm working on myself, trying to change me. Oh, and disclaimer, I meant to say this at the very beginning, but I am not the best combat engineer in the world. I knew a lot of people that were a lot better than me, and if they were doing an Instagram or anything like that of posting stuff like this, I probably never would have started it, but I didn't see anybody else doing it, so that's why I started it. If you may have been a combat engineer veteran, if you're listening to this and think, oh man, this dude's talking crap, if you think I'm wrong, message me, tell me where you think I'm wrong at. I'm open to criticism. But I just want to put that out there. I'm not the most high-speed, know-it-all guy. Don't take anything I say as gospel. This is just me speaking from my experience.
Yeah, but I mean, but you're out here doing it. You know, I mean, like you said, you know, you didn't see anybody else putting out combat engineer stuff. Yeah. And here you are, you're making it available, right? Yep. You know, I'm far away from the best former infantryman, but you know, something that we strive to do was to take our experience, take what we know, take what we can learn, right, and then cut away all the nonsense and just make it applicable for people. You know, because there's so much that it all ties together. You know, so like the soldiering, the homesteading, the medical. I mean. Yeah, homesteading is. We need to be able to do all of it.
Yep, homesteading is huge because, like, if you got all the soldiering skills in the world, but you don't know how to grow your own food, what are you going to do? Yeah, okay, you're going to go help this farmer out and provide security. Okay, he's going to be like, I've got my own gun. I need help growing all this stuff. Like, you've got to be willing to put in that work. You may not know anything, but if you're at least willing to do the hard labor, you can at least ingratiate yourself to somebody and not just expect everybody to bend over and kiss your boots because you got nods and are willing to go kill somebody.
Well, and we literally just talked about this with Bushplaid when we recorded with him last week. But if all you've got going for you is you've got a rifle and you're fighting HML, I'd hate to tell you, man, you don't got a lot. Like like there are so many of you, but if you just pick up some little skills and like you said, just guys who don't have anything else going for them, going to trade school, because it is invaluable to know this kind of stuff. Like just the amount that you could do if you could just weld. Like if you have basic knowledge of just how to weld something, like, oh my gosh, man, dude, insanity.
If you can come up with some crazy obstacles if you've got a welder handy, like the hedgehogs, the stuff that you see in Saving Private Ryan, Private Ryan that are on the beaches. That stuff the engineers would build and put together. There's still hedgehogs. It's like literally just scrap iron somebody went and tack welded together. I mean, some of them are like factory made, but a lot of them is literally just something that like in Ukraine, they just had welders come up and just grabbing whatever scrap angle iron they could, welding it together and making something to keep tanks from coming down the streets. Crazy. That may be all you need.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and think if that's, if that's all you've got between, and very real possibility now, we've had the first ground war in Europe in a generation, so what if it's just you, a tack welder, and then the literal Russian army, who's going to be at your town in a day? Yeah. What can you do with that?
Yeah, and if, say, you are like a couple of combat engineers and you come across somebody that's a welder, maybe they don't have any kind of Minuteman or whatever, but they can weld, you get them to weld you up a couple of hedgehogs, string them across the street, preferably 2 rows deep, and you start running all your barbed wire, tying it into the hedgehogs. Now, not only are you stopping vehicles from coming, but you're stopping infantry from coming too. They're not going to be able to just climb over that stuff. And one of the tenets of any obstacle, like, you don't just put up a fence and then leave it alone and expect it to stop somebody. That's not going to stop anybody. It needs to have overwatch. You need to have somebody watching it. So if you're watching that obstacle and you see, infantry's coming up, they're trying to cut through the wire, well, guess what? Now you light them up. And they're out there exposed, have no cover.
Well, yeah, and, like we said, tying things together, right? So tying that idea, with the idea of Overwatch, I think it was Reaper who, what was it called? Like 2x3 or something. So like 2 or 3 sniper teams, working in tandem, the same area of operation, but different locations, obviously. One sniper fires 1 or 2 shots, then the other guy, as he bounds or, quickly goes to a secondary location, and you can lock down, say that's the main entrance to your town. You can lock that down and nobody is getting in there. Yep. If you use, what do you call it, a hedgehog?
Hedgehog,
and then you have the because chain wire, chain wire, whatever. In that you have 2 sniper teams, and you make that a rat trap. I mean, you're tying down an entire platoon. No sweat.
If you like, this is getting in a little intricate, but say we talk about the mine signs. Put those out ahead of the hedgehog, so now they're slowed down looking for mines. But then they get past the hedgehogs, and you put up mine signs again, but that's where you actually put your mines at. So now they think, oh, these are just fake, and now all of a sudden they're getting blown up.
Yeah, make psyop into it.
Yeah, you can really mess with some people. It just takes a little creativity.
It's defense in depth, right? Yeah. So, yeah, really huge for sure.
Yeah.
Are there any other, delay tactics you can use with trees besides what do you call it? Where you have the
I called it I've heard it said abatis or an abatis.
Where they interlink together, facing the direction of travel, right?
Yes.
Or opposing the direction of travel.
Yeah,
rather.
Opposing the direction of travel. With the abatis, you actually want to. It's better to do it with explosives than with a chainsaw, because you actually want to try to leave the trunks or the tree attached to the stump a little bit, so that's even harder for it to move. You can't just push it out of the way. So that's why if you use a chainsaw, 9 times out of 10 you're going to sever it from the trunk. Whereas if you use explosives, it's a little bit easier just to take out enough of a chunk for it to safely fall, because you'll be out of the way.
Right.
There's log cribs you can do.
What's a log crib?
Log crib is you cut down a bunch of chunks of trees, and you'll put it into like a triangle shape, like this or whatever, and you'll have one point facing the direction of travel. So that's going to make that point the strongest point, and you'll have them interlocked like you're building a log cabin, and just backfill the center of that with dirt. Yes, and now I promise, it's because you're not just going to have them laid, you're also going to have logs going vertically, and you'll have those tied together. So
that's just rude.
And buried into the dirt. So even with a dozer, you're not just going to plow through that. It's you're going to need explosives to breach that. It's not going to be
completely disassemble it, which will take forever.
Yeah, possibly some incendiaries if you got time to wait for it to burn down, and then you can just drive over the dirt. But that's time. You're waiting for it to burn down then. And
depending on how tall you put the dirt,
yes,
or how tall you made the structure, yeah.
So that's a huge one. But the problem with that is you've got to cut down the trees and and you got to have enough people to move the trees. It's a very labor-intensive. A lot of time. Yes, a lot of manpower, a lot of time. If you got HE, that can make moving it a little bit easier, but still, it just takes time.
Yeah.
That's one obstacle that we had shown to us in engineer school, but we didn't actually build because we only had 3 months. We didn't have enough time to build one. But we were shown how one is properly put together. That's actually that and the abatis are the only obstacles I haven't actually physically made, because there's just nowhere to do them.
Yeah.
And they are so labor intensive. There's no training areas that'll let you go out and blow up trees. Just lay down. We blew up 1 or 2 on a demo range, but there's no where hey, here's a road we can practice blocking with trees. They're like, no, then you have to clear it out, blah, blah, blah. And no commander wants to sign off on that.
Right. Naturally. Yeah. Gosh.
Yeah. You can also do log hurdles. It's basically just cut down a tree, and you're just making a speed bump, lay it across the roadway, and then take either stakes or other smaller logs and drive them into the ground, and then run barbed wire over the top of it and just tie it down, and you're just making a huge speed bump. Tank really not be that big of a obstacle for it. It'll be uncomfortable for them, but 7-ton Humvee, it's probably going to stop it.
Okay.
So, and you can make it worse for them by digging a ditch in front of or behind the log hurdle. And anti-tank ditches are actually a very effective way to do it, and you can make those very quickly with ammonium nitrate charges. Ditching charges is what we use. But I think I had an Instagram post that had some pictures of one of those. Let me look real quick. This isn't the ditch, but I just sent you a post that has a picture of an abatis in it, or abatis, however you want to say it.
Oh, that's gnarly.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, you'd never get through that.
Yeah, it's like, and you can go through and strengthen that by tying the trees together with barbed wire. Once again, making it even harder to pull them apart. And if you want to, if you've got access to a couple of explosives, plant some mines in there as booby traps for somebody trying to come through and clear it out to make them even more reluctant to clear it.
I was gonna say that'll slow them down real quick.
Yeah. And
so what's your go-to field manual?
FM5 Tech 34. Engineer field data.
FM5 Tech 34.
Mm-hmm.
USMC Engineer.
Well, it's actually, we use a bunch of the Army stuff. It's actually an Army field manual, but we use it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I just sent you another one. The picture I sent is of the should show up first is of the anti-tank ditches, but if you scroll through, it also has pictures of the log crib, some log hurdles, and some other stuff.
Yeah, I see the tires. Wow.
Yeah. And there's that one that
Steel Hedgehog. Yep.
Yeah, Steel Hedgehog. Knife Rest is another good one. Whereas like you can really it's like a hedgehog, but like you make it out of wood and it's more triangular. You have like a cross on this side, then a log going here, and another cross on this side, and then wrap it all in barbed wire, and that's something that you can be like, say, an impromptu gate. Like you put that down over a roadway where you're trying to make a checkpoint or something, and if you want to just be able to have somebody go over, pick it up, and move it out of the way or something, you can do that. It'll still mess up a vehicle, and do something that somebody has to get move out of the way, as an obstacle, but it's something that you can still theoretically move with like a couple of guys manning the checkpoint.
Cool.
Yeah.
It made me the crib actually reminded me of HESCO barriers.
Mm-hmm.
Them all being backfilled.
Yeah, HESCO is amazing for survivability stuff. It's just it does. It's been a while since I looked at the price of it. I remember it being expensive. I can't remember what it was, but I remember that it was kind of expensive.
Yeah.
But yeah, HESCO is amazing, and especially if you have HE to fill it up, because filling up a HESCO barrier with a shovel sucks. I've done it, but if you've got an HE with like a small little Bobcat to drive over there and dump it off, so much better.
Yeah. I remember we set our guard post on top of a few HESCOs. We filled some HESCOs, and then we sat a shipping container on top of them. We fitted that shipping container out into making and made it into a guard shack. And yeah, those things are nonsense. Yeah,
and one thing that I want to say it was an instructor that mentioned this. That it's not something that you'll find in the book, but say like you're setting out some obstacles like around a perimeter or something. Have some of them that are legit obstacles because they're actually meant to stop stuff. Then have some that are like fake. Like say you'll have some HESCOs that are like only halfway filled because like the enemy, if you got just like a HESCO wall out there, they're going to try to hide behind it. So if you got a couple out there that's not really doing a good job channelizing it, whatever, but you'll have them fake and make them think there's cover and only fill it halfway up, and now you can shoot through it, and they're not expecting that. Or you can even place some demolitions inside the HESCO and then fill it up the rest of the way, and then once you see them hiding behind that, blow that. So just some nasty things that you can do.
Yeah, I think outside the box
defense,
for sure.
Yeah, as far as defense stuff goes. Which, and like, engineers aren't just for defense, they're also for, like I said, we got to be able to go and all these nasty things that I'm talking about putting up for somebody else to have to deal with, 9 times out of 10, we're the ones who are going to have to deal with it. We're the ones who will be called up for it. And, like, for clearing a wire obstacle, Bangalore Torpedo is your best friend for that. Mm-hmm. There is something that we'll do. I don't think it's in the FM5 Tech 34, but I know it's been taught to me, and we've done it several times. We do we call it a field expedient Bangalore Torpedo, because the engineer stakes, the fence post things that we use, they have a U shape to them, so they're concave. So we'll take 2 of them, stuff both sides of it with C4, and then prime it, tape that together, and you can stick that in there. And what actually blows up the obstacle will be the U-post shattering and the shards. It will actually cut the wire and blow the stakes out of the ground. That's what actually does. That's what is actually doing your breaching, is the casing and the shrapnel.
Huh.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep. Bangalore torpedoes can also be used for clearing minefields, like clearing a path. You'll just like push it through, and you blow it. It's supposed to clear a path, I think, 15 meters wide, and however long deep you have it. So, like, if you're clearing a path, like, instead of trying to go through and with a mine detector or with a probe. That's another thing I meant to add in for individual stuff, is a non-ferrous probe that you can use for like probing for mines. Because if you have to, it sucks. I wouldn't want to do it. But if you're stuck in a minefield and you're already in the middle of it, you got to lay down, and you can just take a preferably plastic, but maybe like aluminum or something that's not magnetic, because some mines are set off by magnetism. It's a long probe that you can probe the ground in front of you. The way I was taught is you hold your hand out like this with your palm up, and you're holding it so you're not pushing, so you're not grabbing and pushing a bunch of pressure down on it. You just hold it kind of loosely in your hand, and you're gently poking in the dirt at an angle. You don't want to come out at the top because you might hit the pressure plate and set it off in front of your face. You go in at the side, and you're trying to find the mine there, and then you'll mark it and try to go around it. But that is something that every engineer should have on, is some kind of probe. It sucks doing it. Would never advise doing it if at all possible for you to backtrack and then try to just throw explosives at it to clear a lane. Would be the preferred way of doing it. But if you find yourself stuck in the middle of it, you didn't see the markings or something, then you got to get out somehow.
Yeah, I was going to say that's kind of your crap outlook, anyways.
Yeah. I mean, you can, worst case scenario, a knife will work, but like I said, that's going to be a ferrous metal that's going to have iron in it. It's going to be reactive to magnetism, and if they put a mine in there that reacts to magnetism, then you're SOL. But
yeah. Wow.
Yeah, that is one. I thought I had that written down in my notes. I guess I didn't save it or something. But yeah, that was one other thing that I meant to talk about. So let me go back over and make sure I didn't skip anything else.
Yeah, I was going to say, let me know what else you wanted to talk about, man.
I mentioned the FM5-34. You can buy copies of those off Amazon, and that would be something that I advise most engineers have in their pack, or have a hard copy of it somehow. Because there's like we've already talked about so much about how broad this is. Like, we actually, I don't know how the Army is, but I know in the Marine Corps there are no warrant officers for combat engineers. There are none, because warrant officers are supposed to be masters of that MOS. And what I was told, somebody could come out and tell me, say I'm wrong, but what I was told in the schoolhouse was our MOS is too broad for there to be a master of our MOS. So that's why we have no warrant officers. I've never seen a warrant officer combat engineer. I've seen warrant officers for all kinds of other MOSs. When I worked on the range, I saw a gunner, which I know a lot of infantrymen are like, oh, you saw the warrant officer with the bursting, as a warrant officer insignia on one side and a bursting bomb on the other side. They're supposed to be like the master of like all the weapon systems, everything. They're usually ones in charge of ranges. I saw that. And know a lot of infantry marines are like, they think they're ghosts and don't exist. But I'm like, no, I've seen them. They're real. But I've never seen a warrant officer combat engineer. Never.
Yeah, I'd buy that for sure. That's too much.
Yes, I guess it's a lot to cover. And that's part of one of my reasons, or part of one of my hangups with some of the posts I'm making. I was like, there's so much I need to do. I don't know where to go next.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard for us too, because we're kind of trying to do the same thing. I mean, we're talking about you could spend your whole life talking about soldiering or medical or homesteading or anything. It's just like, so trying to take this huge skill set, this huge mission set, and break it down to where people can
at least have an inkling of an idea. It's like they're not just out there lost, don't know what to do.
Just have a working knowledge of all this stuff, and then the even broader challenge of tying it all together for people and, giving everyone the holistic picture that this all, is intertwined, all works together. It's not just separate, things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's been crazy too.
One of the show notes I think we kind of covered a little bit was like some skill sets. Math is a big one. I hated math in high school, and even throughout my whole 8 years in the Marine Corps, I was terrible at doing math in my head until I got out, went to school, and we had to do it like for my industrial maintenance degree. I had to do a bunch of electrical theory stuff that used math that like I'd never even touched in high school, and I always struggled with math because I didn't have a real world application for it, and that made it real, and stuff finally started clicking, and I can actually do math in my head now. And that, like, I can tell you, the combat engineers that were really good at doing math in their head were way faster at doing stuff than I was. So if you have good math skills and you can do like just like some simple equations in your head, you're 5 steps ahead of the game.
Okay.
Especially ahead of most people, because now everybody's got a calculator in the pocket, and like they don't even know their times tables anymore. So if you can do like some basic stuff in your head instead of having to whip out the phone or a calculator to figure out, hey, I need this board at this length, this board at this length. That means this needs to be this total amount of lumber that I need. That's a huge, huge plus.
Cool.
So that's one thing I wanted to touch on. Math. Study in schools, kids. It is important.
Learn math if you want to be a good combat engineer.
Or if you want to be a good sniper. Sniper is just weaponized math.
God, seriously, man. Like, and I've never had the chance to practice it, but I'm really interested in, just long range, ballistic, just theories. And, there's a formula for taking into account the curvature of the earth. Mm-hmm. And what?
I'm very lucky and blessed. There's a rifle range down here that is literally 15-minute drive from my house. If without getting up into the tower, you can go up to 880 yards. If you get up in the tower, you can go out to 1,100 yards.
Goodness.
And the guy that runs it, they also have a team that they go and do long-range stuff. And like you go out there shooting, if he ain't busy, he'll come out there and he'll help spot for you, help coach you up and stuff. I'm talking about like the team guys. I've seen them out there practicing. I've seen them hitting. They're brightly painted, but they're orange golf balls out at 700 yards. Dinging them. I'm like, are y'all freaking kidding me? Like
monsters.
I mean, granted, it's like 5x25 glass, like Night Force scopes they got on there, so it's not like they're doing it with iron sights, but still hitting a target that small at 700, 800 yards. That's
crazy,
skill, bro.
Well, I mean, there's just so much nonsense that snipers can do. The loophole formula, like. I know it makes sense. There's a formula for it, but it doesn't make sense in my head.
Yeah.
How you can't even see the entire target, and you can, just the math that's involved. So the height over bore, space to the space to the diameter of the hole, like just
or just the math
crazy.
in like using a mil-dot scope to range something. I'm like, I like my primary arms ACSS to range stuff, or an ACOG or something like that to range it. You trying to use a mil-dot and figure out how far away something is? I'm like, you got to do what now?
Well, I had a buddy when I was in. He was prior Marine Corps sniper, and him and another buddy of mine who was a sniper as well. Like they had their dope books already written out for everything for their ACOGs and just all sorts of nonsense. And like something he was telling me that when he was a sniper, he wrote down in his dope book the diameter, like the height and the width of the license plate for whatever area he was operating in, whatever country he was in.
Wow.
Their legal license plates were, because then he could sight in based off their license plate.
That's ridiculous.
With the mil dot. And it's like, that's a pretty crazy application, man.
Yeah,
like,
that is wild.
Yeah.
But like, you got the right math, you can do it.
Yeah, and it's just math.
Yeah, the ACOGs were like cheating. Like I joined early enough that I didn't get ACOGs in boot camp. We still had to shoot with iron sights. My first rifle qual in the Marine Corps and in the fleet active duty was iron sights, but after that, every single one of them was ACOG. And then after we got those, it felt like cheating.
Yeah.
I can actually see the target at 500 yards now. It's not just like my whole front sight post isn't covering the whole thing up.
Yeah, we went from iron sights to the aim point, the red dot, and then to ACOG.
Yeah.
And then ACOG, that's the cleanest glass I've ever looked out of. That thing is just monstrous. I love that thing. Couldn't break it to save my life.
I mean, if it's strong enough to issue to Marines, it's pretty strong. I mean, there is a saying: you leave a Marine in a room with a ball bearing and leave him there for a couple of months. You come back, it's either going to be lost, broken, or pregnant.
Well, is there anything else you want to talk about, man? Anything else you had before we were down?
Yeah, I think that's about it, man. I mean, maybe if we want to revisit one of these things later on, and I can like have better preparation and dive off more.
Oh yeah, well, I want to. Well, I'd love to have it to where I have 6 and Nomad with me, where we can actually dig into one of these like defense in depth or air denial, the attack, anything. But we'll definitely get together with you again and dive into it because like you said, it's way too much to try to cram into one episode. You can't get lost in the weeds on anything because it's too broad.
Yeah, it's like there's all these trees, and that's just one section of the forest.
I was gonna say it's a forest, man. Like it's too much. But I really appreciate you coming on and talking with me. This is such a huge thing. I think it's we're just pulling back the current a little bit to show people just the layman, the everyday dude can master some of these things, can get a handle on these skill sets.
You don't even have to like master it. Like I said, you got the CBs that they master. But if you can get good enough to get by, then as long as you get the job done, that's all. As long as you get it done safely, that's the biggest thing. As long as you get it done without getting anybody hurt, then that's good enough for most people. Like you don't have to be this master cabinet maker to build a shelter, or to build a shelter that's going to keep 15 guys out of the rain. You just need to be able to dig a hole and put some wood in the dirt and get the wood semi straight. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfectly plumb, but get it enough to where it's going to do your job.
It has to be able to work. Right. Yeah. 100% agree, man. Well, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate you. And, this is not the only conversation. We're definitely have more, and we'll have to get the rest of the guys on here to really dig into some of these skill sets and get into the nitty-gritty on this stuff.
Oh, yeah, man. Definitely.
Where can people find you? Like, so you're on Instagram. Are you on anything else?
I am on Instagram. I actually started off everything on TikTok, believe it or not. That's just Crit Joe on TikTok. I don't really post there a whole lot now. I do most of my stuff on Instagram, but anything that I do post on Instagram does also go on TikTok. The only reason I still post on TikTok is because I notice there's a lot of people that on there that apparently have been banned from Instagram, or they just refuse to go to Instagram. And it is another way of reaching people. That's the only reason I still keep up with it. But I also have way more followers over there. I don't know if they're just following for the memes that I used to post or actually following for the content, but at least they're there. Hopefully they'll see it if I post it. But those are my two things, TikTok and Instagram. Okay,
what's your handle on Instagram?
Critter, Critter 1371.
Cool. Thanks for coming on, Critter. We are the Hard Time Strongman, cheering up at Bear Class of Man. Stay in the fight. Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate you.